Like many of you, I'm absolutely glued to what's going on with Sam Bankman-Fried, and I'm going to post the actual bankruptcy filings in the comments below, giving you free access. I've already bought them off Pacer. I want anybody that was a consumer or investor in any of these FTX entities or Alameda entities to have access and knowledge about what's going on, even before you have to hire a lawyer. The importance of what we're going to be talking about today is what was contained in the filings when FTX filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and what was just revealed yesterday by the new CEO of FTX, who is going to help navigate bankruptcy. This is literally hot off the press. This was filed yesterday, November 17th. Today is November 18th. I'm giving it to you for free. Take a look below in the comments section. I'll attach it. You can do. I wanted to highlight, I read through the filings, just the parts that I thought were really important, and also why, if you were a consumer or investor, it would be important to read those bits. So without further ado, the first bankruptcy filing we're looking at today is FTX. So we've got debtor name FTX Trading. This is FTX.com. That's the debtor in this case that's filed a petition. So anytime you hear me refer to petition, just think that that's what kicks off the bankruptcy filing. So voluntary, so nobody forced them into bankruptcy. They filed on their own. It shows FTX's address as Antigua and Barbuda, website ftx.com, and then going down here, any bankruptcy cases pending, yes. We're gonna take a look at Annex 1. You see that right here, folks, Annex 1? That's gonna list all of the entities under this corporate umbrella that are filing bankruptcy simultaneously. To my knowledge, the majority of them, especially when I was going through Pacer, which as an attorney, I've got a login so I can look up, Alameda Research, or I can look up FTX and see all of the filings from November 11th. And there were a lot. You're going to see about 134 total. We go down further. The filing is going to tell us a couple of really important things. Estimated number of creditors. Take a look over here. More than 100,000, right? Think investors, think lenders, think consumers, right? Those are all going to go into these. Some are secured, some are unsecured, right? In law school, they used to use the analogy, imagine you're waiting in line for the bus and you have, creditor 1, creditor 2, creditor 3. Some are secured, some are unsecured. Who gets paid what? Well, yeah, this bus line is over 100,000 people long, or, when I say people, business entities included. Estimated assets between 10 billion and 50 billion. That's a lot on the books. Let's hope they can track most of that down. Disturbingly, look at the liabilities. Estimated liabilities between 10 and 50 billion. So before we're even out the gate, we know that they may have more assets, more liabilities than they have assets. I'm going to show you the new CEO's filing, 30 pages. So wait until the end of this video. I'm going to show you the filing that says that some of these FTX entities were not even keeping track of their liabilities. So we don't even know. We have a decent idea about the assets if we believe the financial statements and the books that have been provided, right, by SBF and these other execs or co-owners, I should say. But the liabilities, we don't know. They weren't keeping track of some. Filing date here, 11/11/2022. John Ray, right? This is going to be super important. Who's John Ray? John Ray is the new CEO of all of Sam Bankman-Fried's entities that are filing for bankruptcy protection. So what John is doing is John is going to be basically spearheading the effort to liquidate what they can, track down, investigate what they can to be able to satisfy the different creditors and interests in these business entities. So there we've got the filing. Again, this is a declaration. So whenever you hear declaration, folks, just think penalty of perjury, right? Why is that so important? Well, under the eyes of the law, it is the most sacred thing that you can do, right? You're filing this with the court. You're testifying, I declare under the penalty of perjury that this is true. And here's our annex, right? This is what we talked about earlier, Annex 1. There were so many pending bankruptcy cases filed that they had to do an annex and talk about all of the ones that are basically related entities. So go ahead and take a look here. We got all the Alameda, right? The big one for Alameda is right here, folks, number 6, Alameda Research LLC. That's the one you're going to see in the next, the FTX CEO Ray talking about, that's the one that's about 90% controlled by Sam Bankman-Fried. And I mean, you go down here, there are so many business entities, and who knows at this point who has holdings in what entities, who has in ownership, investments, lending, consumers, who has involvement. Some of these you can't trade assets in the US, so they're foreign entities. Some of these were filed in places like Seychelles and Turkey. I mean, it's like unbelievable. And we're going to get into some of that as well. So 134, and here's the Omnibus Corporate Authority. So this is basically where Sam Bankman-Fried throws in the towel and says, hey, we're screwed. We got to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This decision in this corporate authority where Bankman-Fried steps down as CEO and Ray steps in comes one day after assets are frozen on November 10th. So take a look at this. I, Sam Bankman-Fried, controlling owner, director, officer, right, of all of the top companies. So think of all the companies that we just saw in Annex 1. And again, these are going to be posted below. Take a look at them. I don't have enough time to get through all this, but there's some interesting stuff in here. So he's appointing John Ray. Well, what's that for? Well, it's because nobody can trust Sam. We know that the financials and the accounting that Sam has been producing, unaudited, they're unreliable. So no creditor, or whether they're secured or not, would be able to rely on it. So we need somebody with integrity and somebody with an unbiased opinion to come in and sort things out. And when the dust settles, Ray is going to be the one that tells us what went. So this is just basically saying what Ray's jobs are. So what he can do, right? Execution of and delivery of agreements, right? That he can appoint board members, right? And I think in one of these filings, we saw they didn't even have a board of directors at Alameda, the hedge fund. I mean, this is some absurdly bad compliance issues going on over here at FTX and Sam Bankman's Alameda entities, right? Both of these entities have some interesting financials laid out by Ray in the next doc. So, the document grants Ray the authority to retain counsel and other advisors, right? Auditors, CPAs, lawyers. And here's who and if you go down below, they're looking at appointing a chairman of the board if he's willing to serve. And then it's signed by Sam down here November 10th. As we go further, corporate ownership statement. This is basically just saying that FTX, on behalf of itself and affiliates as debtors and or debtors in possession, right? So you got to remember, all of these different entities, some may be shell companies, some may be wholly owned, some may have certain interests, some may be joint ventures, right? There are so many different ways that you can structure these business entities that you need a Venn diagram to figure this stuff out. And fortunately for you all, I have a Venn diagram. I'm about to show you one, Exhibit B from the Ray filing in a minute. So this is what we've got. You can go through this. It talks about all of the different ownership and equity, it talks about all the different equity, all the different 134 business entities. And then we'll come over here, and I just want to show you this real quick too. Alameda Research LLC. This is the main piggy bank, if you will, of SBF. So you come down here. So it's incorporated in Dover, Delaware, or at least that's their principal place of business. Why that's important, folks? Delaware has always been known as being a very business-friendly state. South Dakota has a similar reputation, and the reason is they're just more favorable to businesses. Delaware, at least to my knowledge, had the first business court. Sometime they have better tax rules. They just have a better way of adjudicating claims because they have so many business entities there. So that's why certain businesses, at least back in the day, preferred to incorporate there and do all of their business filings there. Nowadays, it's a little bit less common because you have basically every state is now up to speed on some of these things that Delaware was out in front of. So Chapter 11, and okay, same thing. See Annex 1 for pending cases that are related to the filing. Business partner or an affiliate of the debtor. Debtor in this case, Alameda Research. So we go down, same thing, estimated number of creditors, more than 100,000. What's interesting is I know that there are 100,000 people that were trading and doing things on FTX, but Alameda Research, it's interesting. Are they saying that Alameda is directly tied in, or that basically because FTX was sending money to Alameda without their customers' permission, that now Alameda has those same customers as creditors, the same investors, right? Because Alameda is doing some fishy stuff over there. Like, I don't know what sort of creative accounting they're doing, but Ray's going to talk about some of that. Estimated assets between 10 and 50 billion. Estimated liabilities, again, these are some of the worst books. I don't even know if they can find financials, or they certainly weren't audited, but between 10 billion and 50 billion estimated liabilities for Alameda. Again, signed November 11th, John Ray. He's the new CEO of Alameda as well. Annex 1, remember, same as what we just saw for the FTX bankruptcy filing, and same thing that we saw. So it's basically just, again, we've got this corporate authority saying Bankman-Fried stepping down as CEO, Ray stepping up as CEO, what he's allowed to do, and same thing. I mean, have you ever seen the urgency that you see in this case? November 10th, Bankman-Fried steps down. November 11th, they are filing all of these petitions for bankruptcy protection. I mean, there was not a moment to even think in this case. FTX Ray. This guy, John Ray, might be one of the sharpest minds to help resolve this issue. So again, remember, Ray is coming in as this, imagine this integrity officer, this unbiased person that's going to come in and sort out the book. Think of the way that we think of auditors, right? The way we think of auditors is, hey, they have no stake in what's going on in the business. They're just here to provide an independent assessment of what is going on with a company. That's what Ray is doing, only on a colossal scale. So Ray is basically filing this and telling the court, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what we discovered. Here's what they haven't given us. Here are some of the red flags. Here are what we think are assets and liabilities. Here's how we're going to move forward and try to make as many of our investors and consumers whole. So again, as we talked about in the last one, the new CEO, Ray, he accepted this position in the early morning hours of November 11th, right? Think about that. Bankman-Fried signed on November 10th that Ray is going to be the new CEO, and Ray accepted the position on November 11th, right? The interests of the debtors and his offices are in the U.S., and that's extremely important because we need accountability. In the U.S., we have accountability. We have a justice system that we can rely on, and we have the ability with the courts to make sure that we hold any alleged bad actors accountable. I think it's going to be a bit more clear once we get through this. Who the bad actors may be. Since my appointment, I have worked around the clock. I don't doubt that, right? He filed this declaration on 11/17. So that was 6 days later. Secure assets of the debtors, right? The debtors, think debtors. When you see debtors in here, you're thinking of those 134 business entities listed on Annex 1 to identify reliable books and records, to assemble information necessary to provide to the court, and respond to numerous inquiries from regulators and government authorities. Yikes. Congress, the United States Attorney's Office, SEC, and the Commodity and Futures Trading. Over 40 years of legal and restructuring experience. This is important. Why is this important? We're about to learn how bad things are at FTX from Ray himself. He not only has 40 years of experience, but he has 40 years of experience dealing with this type of situation. So he did criminal activity and malfeasance with Enron, right? You already know what went on with Schilling and Ken Lay and some of those things. They had tons of different compliance and creative accounting, and they actually had their auditor, I think it was from Arthur Andersen, like he had an office at Enron HQ, which is like completely beyond the bounds of what auditors are meant to do. So cross-border asset recovery, why is that important? Well, SBF, a lot of what went on occurred outside the U.S., right? He's in the Bahamas, he's in some of these different places. Novel financial structures, what's that? That just means creative accounting. They're making stuff up. What do they say from Wolf of Wall Street, where McConaughey's talking at lunch that time? He's like, it's pixie dust, it's fugazi, it doesn't exist. Yeah, that's novel financial structure. This is what normal accounting procedures are, and here's what's going on. They've got a number of things going on. Maybe they're understating liabilities, overstating assets. We don't know yet. We're going to figure out maybe both or some combination. So nearly every situation that Ray's been a part of, characterized by defects in internal controls, regulatory compliance, HR, systems integrity. Anytime you hear that word integrity, folks, what do we always say? Red flag, red flag, red flag. Yeah. How bad is it for Ray? What do you think? You think on a scale of 1 to Enron, how bad is this? We just broke the scale, folks. Never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information. Are you kidding me? This is worse than Enron? What? From compromised systems, integrity, faulty regulatory oversight, and concentration of control in the hands of a very small group of inexperienced, unsophisticated, and importantly, potentially compromised individual. This situation is unprecedented. What Ray just said in paragraph number 5 is astonishing because he's coming in, right? He knows nothing. Imagine Ray is stepping into day one, probably similar to like Elon Musk walking into Twitter, right? Like he walks in and he's like, all right, where's the lunchroom? Where's the fridge? Where do I put he's going down. He's like, okay, this is the gym. Oh, maybe this is the place where we're spending all of our shareholder money, right? We're blowing it on these extravagant things. But he's going to survey the lay of the land. He's going to figure out, where things are. Ray's going to be looking around. He's going to say, okay, where's these records? Where are these financials? Tell me about the business entities, right? Because we only really know about Alameda and FTX, and we know about a few of the subsidiaries, but we don't know the full scope. I mean, they literally have business entities in over a dozen places around the world. Turkey, the Caribbean, the US, they had it in Japan. I'm trying to think where else. Nigeria, I think, was one of them. I'm blanking on it. Tons of them. We're about to show you. But the important thing here is that potentially compromised individual. What does that mean? That Sam Bankman-Fried is doing something illegal, unethical, unlawful? I mean, what does compromised individuals mean? I think about compromised individuals. I'm like, is he still doing bad stuff? Is he more complicit than we know? I don't know. But that's what Ray's going to unpack, right? He's going to get the survey of the land. He's going to go to the different departments if we can find them, right? I don't know how many of these employees at FTX and Alameda are still around, but that's what he's going to figure out. He's got to talk to these groups. Okay, tell us what's going on. Where are the credentials? Where do you log in? Where do you do all these different things to access the back end of the company? And what are you doing to protect your consumers, your investors, your creditors, right? So here's what we're looking at. 5 core objectives, 5 that Ray has identified in this Chapter 11 filing. The first is implementation of controls. Now, when you're dealing with compromised individuals, right, potentially, as he said in his filing, implementation of controls is key. Accounting, auditing, cybersecurity, HR, risk management, data protection, other systems that need to be in place that either do not exist or did not exist to the appropriate degree. Big thing there. They either didn't exist or they didn't exist to the point where it even, who cares, right? Asset protection and recovery. This is huge. If you can't get asset protection and recovery, well, that's the whole purpose of filing for bankruptcy. You got to try to make debtors have to make as many of their creditors whole as possible. So transparency and investigation, so pending, comprehensive, transparent, deliberate investigation. You hear Ray saying he's been working around the clock. Why? This is such a time-sensitive thing. You can't just wait around and be like, all right, we'll figure out when Sammy comes around, when he lands on his private jet that if we know he probably bought using funds that didn't belong to him. When he gets back from wherever he's traveling from, I'm sure we could sort it out. No, we need to get on this ASAP to make sure that whoever is ferreting money out of the back door of this company, that we know what's going on and where it's going so we can track it down and get it back. That's what they're doing. Efficiency and coordination, again, cooperation and coordination with the subsidiary companies in other jurisdictions. They've got tons of regulatory stuff going on and tons of different filings for bankruptcy proceedings. They're basically saying that they're trying to coordinate all of them and maximizing the value, right? At the end of the day, the debtors had this complex business model that we're going to show at the very end of this video, and they're going to try to get the business, basically the assets back. So the business's investments in digital assets and physical property, right? Those things that can be sold and make their creditors money. So again, District of Delaware, we've talked about that. District of Delaware and South Dakota, that's just where the principal place of business is in the US where they can file this. So knowledge and information concerning debtors, operations, and financial affairs. So that's what this declaration is. This is his opinion, knowledge, and information concerning debtors, operations, and financial affairs. That is what this entire thing is based on. And he did it. He Ray submitted his declaration under the penalty of perjury, meaning, hey court, and he's got no reason to lie, hey court, this is my finding, right? This is, and if I'm filing this with the court, it's, my understanding of what may be going on, and we don't have some answers, but this is what my understanding. So pre-petition debtors, right? This is important. They break up all the companies that we're going to talk about into 4 silos. So you've got the WRS silo, that's this West Realm Shires and that entity. You've got FTX, you've got the Alameda silo. That's going to be Alameda research component. You have the venture silo. That's the FTX Ventures and Clifton Bay Investments. And then at the end, you have the .com silo. So think FTX.com. So that's how they refer to these throughout. So WRS silo, Alameda silo, venture silo, and .com silo. And just so you know, I'm going to post these more often so that you all get a chance to review this. If you ever see this right here, right, where it says the, and then in quotation, and it's always usually in brackets, it says, a name like Alameda Silo, whatever it says before that, anytime you see that, that's what it's referring to. I know it probably seems self-explanatory, but it's very common in legal writing. Each of the silos was controlled by Mr. Bankman-Fried. Oh, we got a footnote here, folks. Let's go down to footnote 2 of this page. To my knowledge, Mr. Bankman-Fried owns directly approximately 53% of West Realm, right? WRS, think WRS silo, approximately 75% of FTX, 90% of Alameda, that's important. That's the main piggy bank, and 67% of Clifton. WRS silo and .com have third-party equity investors, investment funds, endowments, sovereign wealth funds, and families that have an interest as basically an equity stakeholder or investor. Those third parties are equity investors in WRS silo and .com silo. Investment funds, endowment funds, sovereign wealth funds, and families, that tells you who is going to lose the most amount of money here. Most likely. We don't know the 50 consumers that have lost the most amount of money yet. That's going to come out once they're able to secure the network and find out that information. But just know the equity investors that are going to likely lose the most: investment funds, endowments, sovereign wealth funds, and families in relation to the .com silo. Also noteworthy, no single investor other than the co-founders, think Bankman-Fried and company, owns more than 2% of the equity of any silo. This is majority on Sam, everything that we're going to see. Exhibit A is going to be the exhibit that shows the visual summary of the silos. Exhibit B, the preliminary corporate structure chart. If you ever work for a company in-house, whether you had an externship or whether you work there, you know that these companies all have very complex holdings. So they have different flow charts showing where different things go, and it's sort of complicated, but it's really kind of easy to view from a 30,000 foot view, because you can see what's going on with the different entities and what's involved with what. WRS silo, wow. Bankman-Fried, according to statements by Bankman-Fried, had approximately 1 million users as of 2022. FTX US, an exchange for spot trading. Okay. The WRS silo. FTX US was founded in January 2020. FTX US is available to US users, and according to Bankman-Fried, had approximately 1 million users as of August 2022. So just a few months ago, approximately 1 million users, 1 million people that are potentially going to lose out because of Sam. Just despicable conduct. U.S.'s spot exchange is registered with the Department of the Treasury and the Money Services Business and holds a series of state transmission licenses in the U.S. So this will be interesting. Did he violate any of the corporate obligations or responsibilities with any of? All right, we're going to go a bit further down. WRS silos is really interesting, but not our main focus here. I really want to get down to Alameda. Again, South Dakota. I just wanted to show you that. That's really where the majority of these companies are incorporated, South Dakota and Delaware. Okay, so WRS. I have been provided with an unaudited consolidated balance as of September 30th. So remember, the date this was filed right here, 11/17, almost 60 days later, and they still didn't have an updated aware of anything other than the September 30th information. So it shows 1.6 billion in total assets, and this is really interesting and interesting because it tells the tale of what Ray's feelings are towards Sam and company. Because this balance sheet was produced while the debtors were controlled by Sam Bankman-Fried. Remember, debtors, 134 under Annex 1 were controlled when Sam was CEO, I do not have confidence in it. The information therein may not be correct as of the date stated. So this is basically Ray saying, here's what's been provided to us, court. Here's what they're saying the assets are. I don't believe it. Maybe he says, I don't believe it. He doesn't have confidence in it. So again, you can look at these charts. I'm going to post all this for free. To my knowledge, the WRS silo debtors do not have any long-term or funded debt, right? The WRS siloed debtors are expected to have significant liabilities arising from crypto assets deposited by customers through the FTX US platform, right? Think 1 million users, right? Think about them. However, such liabilities are not reflected in the financial statements prepared while these companies were under the control of Mr. Bankman-Fried. He's not accounting for the liabilities in his financial statements when he's CEO. This is very, very troublesome. And why is it troublesome? Think back to when we talked about how many liabilities and how many assets were in that original petition. They estimated between 10 billion and 50 billion in assets and 10 billion and 50 billion in liabilities. Well, that's not what they're reporting here. And remember, this chart is in thousands. So when we see 1.3, we're talking about billion. But look down here at the liability. We only got 316 million. I think what Ray is getting at here is that the liabilities, we may not have a full understanding of where we're at with the liabilities, and it's likely much worse than what we've currently got. I think it was the Alameda silo. When I pulled this online, this was the first thing that I wanted to find is Alameda, because I know Alameda is essentially Sam Bankman's piggy bank, right? It's a crypto hedge fund. It is Sam's pride and joy, if you will. Now, from the outside looking in, it looked like FTX was, but I think from inside his company, right, all of his different business entities, I think Alameda is where most of the stuff's going on. So when you think of these sort of nefarious activities, think about Bernie Madoff, right? Bernie Madoff had, I think, 2 floors of a high-rise in New York, and then a third half floor that only certain employees could go to. Think the 2 top floors are a majority of the employees at FTX and these other entities, and then this sort of back room, boiler room, if you will, is where a lot of this more nefarious stuff goes on, where only a handful of people like Sam know the actual, only a handful of people like Sam know what's actually going on. All right, so we got right here, it looks like Bankman-Fried for Alameda owns 90%, and Wang, who is one of his co-owners, owns 10%. So I would guess if Bankman-Fried goes down, we'll also see Wang get indicted, and if he's in the Bahamas, hopefully they've got police tracking him so that we can extradite him as well. Alameda prepared consolidated financial statements on a quarterly basis. To my knowledge, none of these financial statements have been audited. This is what Ray is saying about Alameda, so just think about that for a second. Alameda prepared statements on a quarterly basis. None have ever been audited. The September 30th balance sheet for Alameda shows $13.46 billion. Okay. However, because the balance sheet was unaudited and produced while debtors were controlled by Bankman-Fried, I do not have confidence in the information, and it may not be correct as the date stated. Again, this is Ray saying, hey, court, this is what Sam provided me, and we know that Sam's been doing some shady stuff. So I don't, it's unaudited. So again, it's unaudited, and I don't have confidence in the information. Okay, this is interesting. Alameda Research, organized in the state of Delaware. Makes sense. That's why they filed there. The other debtors in the Alameda silo are organized in Delaware, Korea, Japan, BVI, Antigua, Hong Kong, Singapore, Seychelles. Seychelles, folks, take a look at a map of Africa. Seychelles is that lovely island just north of Madagascar. They have probably one of the, I would say, friendliest tax shelters in the world. A lot of businesses have their HQ there. Cayman Islands, also known for that. Bahamas, Australia, Panama, geez Louise, Turkey, Nigeria. I've never actually heard of Turkey and Nigeria. Those stuck out to me as interesting. Let's see where else we got. Okay, the venture silo, right? So let's think about the Clifton, FTX Ventures Limited, and affiliated companies. So FTX Ventures Limited shows assets valued at around just shy of $500 million. None of the financial statements have been audited. Common theme here, folks. This is not like a one-off thing. Auditors are so important. Why are auditors important? Before a company, right, can get or usually when a company receives funds from a lender, right? Let's say it's a bank. Part of the terms of that loan, if it's a big enough loan, will be, hey, we got to make sure that the money that you're saying that you need for these things is actually going towards these things, and that if you're producing these types of financials, that they're accurate. And we want to send in an auditor. And it's not usually the bank or the lender or the hedge fund or whoever. It's these private institutions that are sacred for their integrity. And that's what in Enron was so egregious, is that Arthur Andersen, one of the top 5 biggest accounting firms, publicly traded accounting firms in the country, one of the top 5 biggest CPA firms in the country, was not independent, did not have integrity, right? And that's what got them in trouble when Enron went down. Well, anybody that is investing in FTX or Alameda or any of these other companies would expect that the financials are being audited, but maybe it's one of those things that everybody expects somebody else to be doing it, so nobody thinks that there's no way old Sammy boy could have ever pulled the wool over everybody's eyes. And I think it's disgusting that there are so many consumers out there that believed in Sam, and this is what he did. And pulling back the curtain, it's so egregious because he obviously knew what was going on the entire time. He just chose to ignore it. And part of the way you ignore it is you don't have these safeguards in place. You don't have independent people coming in and sweeping your company to make sure that you're legit. None of the financial statements audited, balance sheets unaudited, produced while debtor was controlled by Bankman-Fried. Again, Ray, no confidence. This is all no financial statements related to Island Bay Ventures. No financial statements related to Island Bay Ventures. Where are they? So we got nothing. We don't know much about Island Bay, and we certainly don't know any of their liability. Okay, another major component to this filing is Ray talking about the .com silo. The FTX silo includes the FTX.com platform. Here's what it says. Bankman-Fried claims by the end of 2021, around 15 billion of assets were on the platform. According to him, handled approximately 10% of global volume of crypto at that time. Sam also claimed that FTX.com, as of July 2022, had millions of registered users. These figures have yet to be verified by Ray and his. Also disturbing, FTX.com, included in the .com silo, contains unaudited consolidated balance sheet as of September 30th as the latest, and is the latest balance. It shows 2.25 billion as of September 30th, and it was produced while debtors were controlled by Bankman-Fried. Therefore, Ray does not have confidence in the financials. Again, we've got about 2.2 billion here in assets. This is highly disturbing. Such liabilities are not reflected in the financial statements prepared by these companies while they were under the control of Sam, right? The chart below summarizes certain information regarding .com's consolidated liabilities as of September 30th. 465 million in liabilities to 2.2 billion in assets. That's not good. Here's why that's not good. Ray is telling us that the liabilities are not reflected in the financial statement. So what are they? Are we going to find out that the liabilities are way more than the assets and this is belly up? Where are we